We need more horsepower. You think you can help him find some more horsepower?
I might find a horse or two. Your whole crew, our whole crew, was in the NASCAR hall.
He slams the door open, and he comes in, and his cheeks are flapping, and he's like, "You just caused a GD bench clearing brawl," and he threw that door back shut.
Josh Berry, any race he goes to now, he's got a shot at winning.
Welcome to Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, presented by Echo Park Automotive and NASCAR on Fox. And today we have a group, I'm going to say part of the group of Wood Brothers Racing. And I think for me, I think it's important to start by saying, first off, it's the 75th anniversary of the Wood Brothers. And I don't know, you guys have been in this since the 50s, right? And I don't know that you could have imagined that this year would start off like it has. You guys have been through some pretty good times in the years and the drivers and the success, but to have Josh Berry in victory lane just flat out winning the race is something that has to be exactly what you set out to do. So how either one of you can start. I mean, how has this season been to start off this way?
Well, number one, we started in 1950. I was 15, Glenn was 25, and he said, "It's got to be something to do besides hoeing corn."
Yeah.
So I can't believe that my young nephews, Ed and Lynn, started helping me like 50 years ago, and for them him and his other younger family, his family, kept this thing going to 75 years, and it's just been so rewarding. You have dry spells. All teams has dry spells. They go forever and all that. And then here comes Harrison Burton, wins the 100th win last year. And then the 75th year, we win a race. And then now we're going to go to Darlington with a paint scheme like we pitted Jim Clark back in 60 years ago and helped Formula One world champion win into 500. And to top it off with all that's going on has just been unbelievably, very touching to me.
So how did we fuel that car so fast?
Well, I explained the Venturas. I guess you know what a Ventura is and what it does. Like if you had a sharp, flat hole, a flat hole, air's going to go, or liquid, and it can't make a right-hand turn. It can't make a very sharp turn. It's going to arc over, and it'll be half as big, maybe a little more than that, than the hole.
Yeah.
But if you arc it in like this, it gets a straight, full shot over the hole. So we'd already been working with Venturas, in the stock cars, and started out in 1960. John Cowley from Ford Motor Company said, "I think it's time to be getting the pit." So right away we started working, trying to impress Ford. And so right away by 65, we had the pit stop worked out. Same guy calls Glenn and won't know if we'll come up and pit Jim Clark. So we go up and so I'm going through inspection. We're preparing the car. We go up a week early and we're preparing the car for a pit stop. And had a big old settlement plate on the bottom, and you took all the bolts out and you crawl up in the tank. And then I'm up there polishing this Ventura that the Colin Chapman team had put this Ventura in there. I didn't know they was going to do it, but it was just perfect like we wanted it. And of course, my brother come by hunting and he couldn't find me. I'm up in this tank. But anyway, the inspector come along. He says, "How come you got the outlets so far up on the tank? All the others on the bottom," showing they didn't have a Ventura. Because you got a Ventura, you got to have it in the center.
Right.
So the hole's up on the top. He says, "I'll bet you $1,000 you can't pour 20 gallons a minute out of that thing." So we could care less. We didn't bet with him. So we get set up to make a dry run. We put 58 gallons in 15 seconds. And of course, Colin Chapman's got this special timekeeper scorekeeper. And so he's the one doing the clocking. So he clocks it, and he just walks around whistling. He's so happy. But the Lotus team just rolled out the red carpet when we come up there.
Yeah, and those are the great stories that came from racing back from when you started all the way through much of time. Eddie, as you've gone through a lot of the progression, and you see where you are now with the race team. You've got the alliance with Penske. You've got Josh Berry driving your car. The last time I saw your team like this, it had a young man named Ryan Blaney driving the car. Does it feel similar to that mesh of people that you've put together this time around?
Yes, it does. When Blaney was a rookie, when he started driving for us, and we ran part-time the first year, which would have been 2015. And then we started running the full schedule in 16 with Ryan. And then in 17, he won Pocono. And you ran second that day.
That's right.
Because I remember late in the race, you'd had trouble early in the race. Something happened to your engine. It got over-revved or something.
Yeah, I think I put it in third. I think I went from third to second, but
something was going on.
I was testing the rev limiter. Doug Yates was proud of that one.
Took attention out of your valve springs.
Yeah. It took a lot out of it.
Yeah, but I remember it was late in the race, and we had a bad pit stop early and had to come back down pit road and tighten a wheel, which it put us off sequence and wound up. That's what helped win the race, the way the pit sequence was. But best I remember, Ryan passed Kyle Busch. And I thought, man, we might be all right now if we don't get a yellow. And then here you come. Yeah. And you were coming and coming and coming. And when you got there, the race was, it was about over. And I remember somebody on the radio said somebody's back in the throttle coming across the tunnel. And then, he kept coming and there wasn't a way to catch him. And but I do remember you finishing second. Yeah.
Well, those days with, when you go back and you look at Ryan's era, and there's a lot to the team chemistry that I don't think people really understand. When you get a group of people together and it clicks like it has with Josh and the team that you guys have right now, was this something that you guys were involved in handpicking? I know John's been involved in a lot of the things that you guys do. How did the decision come down to picking Josh kind of just out of thin air?
When the whole thing, we had decided things were going to change, and of course Ford had a relationship with Briscoe from way back, so we had to we met with Chase first because that was kind of the progression of it. But in the back of our minds, we wanted Josh. Yeah, and of course, Chase went on to go with Gibbs, and that just worked out. And then Josh was the second person we got to meet with, and it was evident that's who we wanted right then and there. And, and you talk about chemistry. I was one of those guys that, and I'm going back years, that people talk about chemistry and football and baseball and, this guy's this. I never really paid a lot of attention to it. But this year with Miles Stanley, he's our crew chief this year, and Josh, it's like they clicked at Bowman Gray Stadium. Mm-hmm. Just right off the bat, you could see that it's like they've been together for years. And I see that every week. And it's, it's hard to get magic in racing. You got to put the right people with the right people. And it just seems like those two are they fit each other. I mean, just to hear them, the conversation, listen to them this week at Darlington on the radio a little bit. And it's like they've been together forever, and everything is calm and just matter of fact, and it works. And when you got something working like that, you really don't ask why. I'm sure you've been there. You appreciate that it works.
Yeah, you ride that train until that sucker stops, because you never know when it's going to stop. And you've seen a lot of the things that have come through your team and through the years in NASCAR. When you look at Ryan Blaney, Wood Brothers, Josh Berry, Wood Brothers, what was the combination that you look back on and say, that was just a magical time for Wood Brothers Racing and that combination? What era, what driver team would you pinpoint that on?
Well, we have, in case you didn't know it, we've had probably 80 different drivers that sit in our car, either practicing or won a race in our car. But when we went with David Pearson, I mean, it just clicked. His driving style fit the way Wood Brothers like to set a car up.
Yeah.
He drew brakes with his right foot, and so he was never on his left foot on his brakes when he didn't need to be. Because he'd run a car freer and not be loose, you could run a taller gear. And like Darlington, he'd have a taller gear and just roll out of the gas and let the car go in and take a set and pick your throttle up early and blow you away down the straightaway. And Neil Bonnet, it took me like 6 months to get exactly what was best for him. It was a complete different setup that made him run.
Yeah, and I think when you look at all those great drivers and great teams, and what asset do you see? What ability, knack? I don't know, whatever you want to call it, with Josh Berry. What sticks out about him that makes him he's going to be a multi-time winner? And what asset do you think that he has that's going to make him a great Cup driver?
You, me, or him?
Either one.
Well, anyway, first of all,
we know you talk more, and I like that.
Hello.
I love these stories. I had Kyle Petty in here a couple weeks ago, and we would need about 3 hours to get through both of your stories.
Before I finished on Josh Berry, Kyle Petty was the only driver. He knew what he needed.
Yeah.
What he needed was he knew what he wanted, and what he wanted was what he needed.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes drivers, what they want ain't what's best for them.
Yeah.
But he would go a half a lap, was all he'd make, come back in. That wasn't what he wanted. He knew he wasn't what he wanted. And if you give him what he wanted, he'd win the race. But anyway, Josh Berry, if you remember, he took over for Dale Earnhardt Jr., won pole position at Phoenix, the very first race he ever run in the Cup, I reckon. Yeah. Am I right on that?
Well, let's see. Now you're testing. You're getting into my TV ability, and it's low without my.
Okay, now I already bragged on you.
No, so I think you're talking about when Josh got in with the Xfinity car or the Cup car.
He got it. Dale Jr. got hurt.
Oh, that's right.
Had to be relieved.
Yeah,
and he went to Phoenix, set on pole first time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Chase Elliott.
Huh?
Chase Elliott.
Well, he did that later.
Yeah.
But Earnhardt was first.
Okay.
All right.
You got me straight now. I don't remember that one.
I pride myself. I know what a good engine sounds like.
Yeah.
And I know what a good driver is when I see one.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh Berry and Miles Stanley has got the talent. I fully believe. I'm thinking any race he goes to now, he's got a shot at winning. If everything goes right. Now, this day and time is so much involved in what happens during the race to win a race. It's very hard to win. But I have the feeling, I don't run the show anymore at all as these guys, but my feeling, I know those guys got the talent, a shot at winning every race they go to.
Yeah. When you look at the family aspect of what you guys do, how much of a role have you put John in now, as far as what he does on a day-to-day basis, and how he's evolved into being so, it seems like, a lot more part of everything that you guys do?
Yeah, it's really changed a lot. During COVID, and you lived through it too, all those Zoom meetings and meetings about you had a meeting to decide when he's going to have a next meeting.
Yeah.
And Lynn and I would make John go to those meetings, or you do the Zoom. I don't want to do that. I don't want to deal with it. And it just, so many meetings, so many things come up that a younger mind is quicker.
Yeah.
That way quicker than my mind. And he was already doing a lot of that, all the merchandising and all the stuff, that you have to support your team with, and talking to the sponsors, the relationships, building that. He was already doing a lot of that, but he was my kid. He was still Eddie's kid.
Yeah.
And I told Lynn one afternoon, I said, I think we need to see if John would want to be called the president, just because the meetings he goes to are president's meetings. They've got those now. And he was attending all that anyway, so we did that. And it just instantly changed. It was like, it was a piece he needed. I guess he didn't know he needed it. He didn't care. But once he became that, he just took off, it just was off and running.
Yeah.
And, the paint scheme that we're going to run this weekend with Clark at Darlington, he did that. That was his.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was, and we talked about that, like maybe running in Indy sometime. And that never worked out. And I never even thought about running at Darlington.
Yeah.
And then he called me one day and said, I'm going to send you a picture. So it was a drawing of it. I said, man, that's cool. And I said, I don't know how you get that passed. You got to call Lotus to get permission, to use the Lotus name or Jim Clark name or, whatever. Well, he calls Colin Chapman, son, Clive. Now, Clive would be my age. Now, Colin, he passed away, years ago, but he was the guy in 65 with Leonard, my dad. Yeah. And he went through this whole spiel to Clive about what we're trying to do. And he's trying to think, okay, we call it a throwback. Those guys would call it a revival, like the Goodwood revival.
Right.
Like he was trying to use proper English because he's Englishman
right.
or, European. Yeah. And they don't talk like we do,
Yeah.
And he got into that. And so Clive actually answered his email and told him to call him, and they worked it out. Got a letter, giving full permission.
That's great.
Team Lotus, and which that to me was, I could have never done that. But like I say, he's took what is necessary, and he understands all the stuff it's so much more complicated to run race, to have a race team in NASCAR now than it was when they had it. My dad pretty much told Lynn and I in 1985 when we started. That's when we started running all the races with Kyle Petty, and it was Kyle and Lynn and me, and we went and got the 7-Eleven sponsorship. Jackie Root. Yeah. Jack went with us, and we went out there and got it and brought it home, and then we started running all the races, and everything worked out.
Off it went. Now, Ford and Motorcraft have been so much a part of what you guys have done. Was there ever a point where you're like, I don't know if we'll stay full time. I don't know if we're going to have the team. At what point has Ford been in there to say, okay, you need to keep running? Was that you guys? Was that Ford? What's been that balance through the years to keep it going?
Just things happen. People's asked that question before, and it's not something that happens quickly. Yeah. It's just things evolve. In 07, 08, Long and Air, we were really, really struggling. We'd missed 500. We missed a 600. We missed the Brickyard. So missed a lot of races. And that's when they had like 50 cars trying to make the show. And we were way down in points. And every time you miss one, it gets worse. You're further down. And I've told this story before, but we were in Pocono testing for that race. And Edsel Ford calls me. It's like a Tuesday, and he's looking for a phone number for his General Jumper, who was with the Air Force at the time. And he said, "Why haven't I heard from you lately? You haven't called me." And I said, "Mr. Ford, we run so bad. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed to call you." And his exact words were, "So you're telling me my 21 is broken?" "Yes, sir. It is broken." He said, "Well, I'm going to have someone call you in the morning, and we're going to fix this." So, we go back, finish our test that day, went back to hotel. Next morning at 10:10 a.m., I remember exact, Jim Farley calls. Jim Farley had just gone to work at Ford Motor Company from Toyota, and he was in charge of kind of helping the racing thing at that time. Yeah. And we talked for a little bit. He said, "You need to get up here to Dearborn as quick as you can." Okay. We left from the racetrack, have any clothes, just had jeans and T-shirt from test, and got on an airplane in Wilkes-Barre and flew to Detroit. And he was called out of town for some emergency meeting or something, so we had to stay till Friday. This was Tuesday afternoon. We went and bought clothes and, shiny shoes, the whole deal. Met with him. He said, "Okay, we're going to start working on this." And we did. They did. And it just started to get better and better and better. And this was like in 08. And then in 11, win Daytona 500 with Trevor. You know, it wasn't like, boom, you're fixed. It was just, and we got a relationship and alliance with Jack Roush. That was part of the build back. And the car that we won Daytona 500 with Trevor was a Roush car. And it had support. We crashed in the 150 miler with Gordon because he was the only one who would draft with him that year.
Right.
And that's when they had the tandem drafting.
Yeah.
Everything
that
was
was
new
wild.
and different. I loved that.
Yeah.
I loved it. I'm sure, I don't know if you did or not, but I
Well,
loved
there's
it.
nothing like looking at somebody's spoiler for 500 miles. But
Yeah,
it was unique. It was always unique to hear the spotters come across, a different spotter come across your radio.
The funny thing about that is I was up on top of the hauler, and I guess it was Saturday morning practice. Nobody had done it yet. And we were watching it, and I think Matt Kenseth hooked on to somebody. I don't remember who it was. And they go by, and they run like 205 mile an hour. And I called my dad. He was over on the beach, and I said, you need to come over here and see this. I said, I can't explain it. I've never seen anything like this. You need to see it. Okay, so he comes over, crawls up on the truck for the next practice. He's looking. He said, I saw Joe Weatherly and Curtis Turner do that in 1960 in a couple of Falcons.
No kidding.
6 months later, a picture turned up. We got the archives in Daytona, went in and visited and found a picture of Curtis and Joe Weatherly, nose to tail, just like you guys did it.
Wow.
And they were doing it. I guess it was practice for the 24-hour
It was a road
race.
course. There was two little old Falcons I was running. But anyway, Jeff Gordon told me, says, talking about Trevor Bayne, said, great kid you got in there. I'm going to try to help him in the 150 miler. So he helped him some in the 150 miler, and Kyle Busch told him that if you pull away from your guy, break it to where you can connect. And then David Pearson told him, says, you're going to have to be there at the end to win the race. And then he goes out and I would say before the race is over, he was the best pusher out there.
And that was the best spot. I always felt that was the most comfortable spot to be in was the pusher, because you were in control of when you pulled out of line and you could push them away. And that was right up your alley, though. And we built a couple trucks that we ran at Talladega, and we put those trucks together in the shop after all that started. And we built that truck. We put it on the actuators, and we put the truck on the ground, the nose of it on the ground, and we put the tail back up. Well, with the Speedway trucks, you used to always raise the nose up.
Oh, yeah.
And so we lowered that nose down, and we built this big giant grill in the bottom of it, because when those trucks would connect, we had two trucks at the time, and we raised the back of the tail up because you obviously wanted the tail down.
You got a long truck with two motors.
Yeah, and that grill was underneath that truck, and it would cool itself all day long. And we put boilerplate on the front of that thing, and those things stayed attached like glue all day. It was Mike Wallace, and Hornaday would never want to lead because he wanted to be the pusher. It scared him to death to be the leader with somebody behind him pushing like that. But did you ever what were some of the cool things that you created that just had an advantage for a long time? Because they immediately outlawed that, but you had to have some stuff that you created in situations like that.
Well, number one, you got to have your car handling good.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of people may not believe in leaf springs in the back, but that 71 Mercury had leaf springs in the back, and that thing, I'm telling you, it was so well balanced.
Now wait, is that the one? Are we going to drive that this weekend?
You're going to drive that one.
Okay. Yeah, just make sure Boyer's is slower than mine. Whatever happens, just make sure
he's
going to
be in a Neil Bonnet Thunderbird.
I mean, if it runs out of gas and he has to push it back, that would probably be as entertaining.
Maybe back his throttle off.
Yeah, just something like that. And Clint and I were talking about this week. When Richard did that. Remember when he did that at Darlington several years ago?
Yeah.
They couldn't get him to come off the racetrack. I said, what do you think they'd do to us if we took a couple extra pace laps? Probably not get the same treatment as Petty would get.
No, the 63 Ford, we won the Daytona 500 with a 63 Ford. That car, it had leaf springs in the back. And I welded a spindle on extension on the right front spindle, like 2 inches longer on the top. Well, number one, it made the ball joints farther apart so the wheel wouldn't turn it under. But back then, they would body roll, and wear the tire off on the outside edge. Well, with this extension on there, if you push it up and down, just sitting still, it draw the tire in at the top. So when body roll, it pushed it out at the top.
Yeah.
Well, this pushed it in and that pushed it out. It ended up exactly flat across the bottom. And we run the whole 100-mile race on one set of tires.
No kidding.
It wore it exactly across the bottom.
So tell me when, we went through this, when I started, everything was kind of trial and error. Your whole time period was somewhat trial and error. When did you have, how did you figure out all the roll centers and everything? Was that during that time, or was that just you push the car down and look at it?
Toe steer. I had it where, that it wouldn't, the toe end wouldn't move at all. Well, it was towing it in too much. So the wheel was like this. Right one was like this, and the left one was like this. Well, it's going to push. Well, you turn them both out like it's supposed to be through the corner. They both work like a team.
Yeah.
You don't want them fighting each other.
Yeah.
You know good and well, if this one wants to go this way, it's going to go this way.
Yeah.
Vice versa. So you figure the acclimate it needs through the turn, and then you can make the steering arms, the acclimate would be straight down the straightaway and have the right acclimate through the corner.
So when you go up in these lounges now and you look at all the different telemetry and throttle traces and steering traces and computer sheets, there is no possible way that the driver is ever going to keep up with that anymore. It's impossible. You talk to Kyle Busch and some of those guys, and you listen to the biggest thing they've had to overcome is not paying attention to what springs and shocks and geometry is in the car. What do you think when you walk up in those lounges now? Are you excited, or are you like, oh my God, what in the world have we gotten ourselves into?
Well, see, I don't get involved trying to tell them how to do it anymore.
But you see it.
I see it. I would have to work with it.
Yeah.
And of course, I say it many times that this thoughts pop in my head how to do stuff. I've never had any engineering degree or nothing. But a thought will pop in my head how this needs to work. And that's this way it's always been. I would have to work with it to give you a good explanation of what I think was going on.
It's a lot of information. Yeah. It's overwhelming.
Yes.
What's the biggest thing that has changed over the last few years with Next Gen? What has it changed for the approach from the race team and how you go to the racetrack, or how many cars you have, how many people you have? How much has it changed the dynamic of how the race team functions?
Now, I think the whole new way of racing started after, when we got to come back before everybody else did as a sport during COVID. And I never, ever in my wildest dreams thought we could go to a racetrack and not practice.
Yeah.
And start green flag and go. And they did it. We did it at Darlington. You did. You were part of it. With no practice, no anything. And nobody had any problems. They go. And it's just a world we're in now. The kids, they're all about, my guy got grandkids and they're all about iPads. And you take an iPad away, like, you don't want that. Well, then you go hang out with them at a restaurant for a little while. Here's your iPad.
Yeah.
But it's just, the world is like that. So race cars need to be like that. And I like it.
I just find it hard to believe that these things will run a half inch off the ground at 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Back, you were talking about the changes. You used to have a height stick you had to go under. The thing had to be like 5.5 inches off the ground, And now that thing is scraping the earth and
we need more horsepower. You think you can help them find some more horsepower?
Well, I might find a horse or two.
I bet you could. I guarantee you could.
I know I used to tell them years ago, worked with Edelbrock, and I told them, you need your manifold looking like your fingers. Your intake runners look like your fingers. this one this long, this one this long, and this one this long. When they're real low and flat, the two center ones was way too short. And the end one was long. You had two short runners and long runners. Well, that makes them more all the length. Yeah. And now that's basically how they design the thing.
Talk to me about your museum. You guys going to open your museum into May, correct? May.
Yeah, well, we've got a museum.
I mean, you're adding a Hall of Fame to the museum.
Yeah, Winston Kelly and all the guys at Hall of Fame wanted to do an exhibit to celebrate our 75th year. So that starts May 22nd, maybe. It's the day after we vote for the Hall of Fame, the next group. And it's going to have the 71 Mercury that you're going to drive. It's there. It's going to have the car that Harrison wanted the 100th race in. It's got, I think it's three more cars, a bunch of trophies and just artifacts from, all through the years, going back to the 50s.
Yeah.
I mean, our dad, I think it was 1959, won Most Popular Driver, which is, they had that award back then too. Yeah. And it was voted on by people that were NASCAR members. They used to have this little newsletter that come out every week about Bowman Gray Stadium and wherever they were racing, and people would vote on it. But it's going to have a lot of that stuff. And I talked to Lynn about, well, what are we going to put in place of this in our museum? But we've kind of already started that. We've got other cars that are in another building, and but the cool stuff will be at the Hall of Fame. The really cool stuff.
And I would assume, did you keep everything? Have you guys? I mean, has the family kept everything through the years for the most part, or did we give some of it away, or is it all there for the most part? What you wanted?
I'm sure we've thrown away a fortune.
Yeah,
because you didn't know any better.
Yeah,
you just didn't need it. You got rid of it. And in Leonard, my dad's day, the next new car, you used the car you were running, or if you had two cars, those were the parts and pieces that were good on it, you put on the new car.
Yeah.
It's still a new car, but there was things that they had worked out that you kept going, and you didn't care about the car behind you. And a lot of those got gone. There's not a ton of our old race cars around. Richard Petty has one. He's got the car that Kyle won 600 in 1987. He's got it in his museum. But the Mercury is real. It's got a Boss 429 in it that was raced in it. It's still got it's not been restored, and it's not been recreated. It's like it was when it stopped racing, because it was obsolete. Because like he said, it was a leaf spring car.
Right.
And the next ones were truck arm cars. So we put that thing in the Darlington Museum a year or so after that, which would have been about 74 or 5, and started running the new cars. And it stayed there for 20 years, longer than that, I guess, until the COT came. And when that came, they called our shop one day and wanted to know if we could get it running. Like, yeah, I guess. And they were you may remember it, they was going to do, Carl Edwards and David drove around Darlington side by side.
Yeah.
So we got it back, and took Leonard about a month to get it going, because everything in it was rotten, the fuel cell and lines and everything. So we got it going and did that. And when we gave him the car, or put the car in the museum, it was just kind of a tribute to David and just Darlington, because Darlington's Darlington. And so when we got it back, we said, okay, we just need to keep it in our museum. So we did, and that's what we have now. But it's been several places, like A.J. Foyt used it, because he drove it. So there's 5 guys that drove it. When it was brand new, a guy from your part of the world, Parnelli Jones, drove it at Riverside, led the race, and I think broke a transmission or a clutch. And then A.J. drove it, and then Cale drove it, Donnie Allison drove it, and then David got in it in 72 at Darlington, which would be this spring race, sat on pole, won the race, and then that's when the history part of that started. But that was that car.
Yeah. Where's my hood? Where's the hood? Where's the hood from Richard?
It's hanging on in the museum.
It's in a museum.
Yeah.
Okay.
The hood?
That's
Which
good.
hood?
The one we jumped on.
One he jumped
like
on.
Acting like a bunch of fools.
What was it?
Him and
Told you to
Scarce.
get-
And actually, our car chief with Miles was on the hood. Kurt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of those 3 of y'all.
We called him Dog. That was his nickname for a long time.
And what was funny, the next morning, which that was a Saturday night race.
Yeah.
Next morning, I got a call from Childress. he was hunting somewhere like out west, and he said, I'm sorry about that. No, man, it don't matter. And no.
He was pissed.
He
was so mad. He made me pay. I had to pay every fine for every crew member that got fined. It cost me $155,000.
Come on.
Yes,
Really?
it did. He made me pay every fine. I had to pay them all.
Well, I remember when all this was going on, your whole crew, our whole crew was in the NASCAR hauler.
Oh,
They
yeah.
drug everybody.
Right, standing right next to each other.
Yeah. And it got funny. I mean, it finally was, who cares?
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. And,
I just remember, the thing I remember most about that night, everybody's standing in the hallway, and then we're sitting in the lounge, and Mike Helton walks in the back of that door, and he slams the door open. And Mike was pretty heavy, and he comes in, and his cheeks are flapping, and he's like, "You just caused a GD bench clearing brawl," and he threw that door back shut. And that was as mad as I've ever seen Mike, because I said GD on TV. And that was really the reason that he was mad. That's why they were all mad. And luckily at that particular time, Jim Hunter was, if it wasn't for Jim Hunter, I'd have been a long ways down the road. Without Jim and Richard, I'd have been in big trouble. But all right, I got two questions. What was your first car that you ever drove on the street?
That I ever drove on the street?
Yeah. What was the first car you ever drove as a kid?
40 Ford.
40 Ford. What'd you do with it? Did you build it, buy it, sell it, wreck it?
A guy wrecked it, run it off in a hole, only had 22,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
Run it off in a hole, bent the frame. Well, I bought the thing and and changed the frame on it and fixed it back up and made a real nice car out of it. It's one of my favorite cars.
One of your favorite cars?
A 40 Ford. Now, you talking about handling? You could sling them things sideways and get in the throttle. I mean, if you modified it and bored the engine, stroked it, put a camshaft in it, and 3 carburetors on it, is the most powerful thing you ever seen in your life back in that day.
So that was cool. What was the best car you ever drove? What was the car you look back and you're like, man, that thing was badass?
Well, I like the way the 63 Fords handle. Now, you're talking about coil springs in the back, you know.
Yeah.
63 Ford had leaf springs in the back. Because this place in front of a certain road, it had a certain dip. The 63 Ford with the leaf springs in the back, you'd feel the front wheels hit. You'd never feel the back wheel, the rear wheels hit.
Yeah.
The 65 had coils all the way around. You'd feel the front wheels hit, and you'd feel the back wheels hit. True story.
Best driver Wood Brothers ever had? It doesn't have to be full time. Just
you're going to ask me that.
Well, I mean, you've seen all the footage. What do you think? Well, I'll let you both answer it.
Huh?
You can both.
The best driver that drove
for you guys.
Car.
Like you looked at even if it
first of all
didn't drive full time.
We have been so fortunate. We have had the best drivers in the world.
Absolutely.
Driving our car. And it's so many, each one of them had a little bit of driving style.
Yeah.
But there's so many, there's too many of them for us to mention. But all of them had a good one about them.
If I had to pick, I would say David Pearson.
David Pearson won 43 races for us.
Yeah.
He won 11 out of 18 starts.
I mean, we could probably stir a whole bunch of stuff up if we got David Pearson running full time, right?
Yeah, but
we won't get that conversation started today. We might get banned.
Parnella Jones and A.J. Fort and Dan Gurney, I'm telling you, they were right on up at the top.
Oh, yeah. It was that. I wish I could go back and be a part of that era of racing, because it was so pure and so you could get away with so many other things that you can't now, and just the way that you could drive the cars and the things that you could do.
Riverside was so exciting to watch them run Riverside Road Course, come down that long back stretch and go through the turn 9. And
I'm old enough to have been there. I grew up in Bakersfield, California, so I went to the last race at Riverside. Kathy Corelli, I wasn't old enough to get in, and we were running a kart race in Riverside. So they were racing on Saturday. I don't remember exactly what division it was, but Kathy put a blanket over me and I hid on the floorboard in the back seat. And I stood in back of Rick had a bread van at the time.
Oh yeah.
That was their tow hauler. And so I stood in the back of the truck while they raced the last weekend in there at Riverside. So
you never did see Dan Gurney run?
I never did.
Yeah. Well, I want to bring up Glenn Wood. Bowman Gray Stadium, Martinsville, Virginia. There was nobody better.
Yeah.
We had this backseat car. Glenn says, I think we need a bigger spindle on that right front. And running, Bowman Gray and asphalt, I didn't, not running dirt, I didn't see the point. So I got in with him over at Martinsville in that backseat car. He's got these big slicks on it. He goes in the corner so fast, I'm holding on the roll bar. I thought it was going to throw me out the window, and it looked like it must be 20 ton on that right front. So I've had enough. He can't hear me. And so finally he stops. I said, Glenn, you need a bigger spindle on that right front.
Just call it like you see it.
But let Eddie.
Well, I'm going to let him off the hook. Best moment you've had at the racetrack for the Wood brothers, like just the most surreal moment that you remember as a kid, adult, whatever that was. Doesn't have to be recent. Just the memory that sticks out as a kid, because you guys have got to experience things that most people don't even know about in our sport. There's got to be something that sticks out for you, and it can't be anything about Corelli. Yeah,
I just got a message from him a few minutes ago.
I know which one he needs to say.
What is it?
The 2011 Trevor Bayne win was the most celebrated winner circle I've ever been in. And then, of course, now this Harrison Burton and the Josh Berry is on up there.
Yeah.
But the races that I was in charge of that won, I was never as happy as I am for my young nephews and their families to win Josh Berry and the 100th win and all that. I'm just so happy that they brought it 75 years.
Well, you guys have had a great part of this sport. I'm honored to have you guys here today. Congratulations on 75 years. Leonard, Eddie, thanks for taking the time today, and good luck the rest of the year.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.